All right, welcome back to AM Live. We looked at an editorial cartoon on the other side of the break. This is the editorial cartoon that I feel works best for our discussion this morning. We have a pen, paper for signatures, Rigathi Gachagua, William Ruto there. What this collection of signatures to what end is what we're discussing this morning. But I did promise we would touch on this before we transition into that. And that is this particular report on Mbadi being quoted as saying minority leadership in Parliament weak, but I will not step down as ODM chair. There was an analysis that I believe was done last week in the Sunday Nation in the weekly review of why the finance bill passed, yes, but the opposition did not quite live up to expectation. You know, last week there was a lot that was said about Silvana Sosoro's remarks that some of the opposition MPs were bribed to either feign illness or not turn up at all for the vote, which is what we saw. We saw ODM immediately after the second, I think it was the second reading, send show cause, was it second reading, I think? Send show cause letters to these members of parliament. So this, for me, this particular report quoting Mbadi does not come as a surprise. And okay, but let's just take a look at some of the detail. Now, in his fourth term at the National Assembly, ODM chairman John Mbadi has been one of the great political assets that the opposition leader Raila Odinga has had since 2007. His mobilization and oratory skills have evolved into a political not to be ignored in opposition quarters, and on it goes. We get the gist of the story, and then we take a look at this particular story, or a graphical representation that is, of Raila's changing inner circle. Now at the fringes, we have Kivutha Kibwana, Esther Psaris, Governor Kisi, remind me, guys? Ongwai? Yeah. Sorry, Sabina Shege, Francis Atwoli, Kanini Kega, the former Mandera governor. The names are eluding me at the moment, but you see their faces. And in now, closer in, we have Junet Mohammed, Edwin Sifuna, Opio Wandai, Eugene Wamalwa, Roots Party leader, Jakoya, Kalonzo Musyoka, Otiende Amolo, Martha Korua, Wycliffe Oparanya, Millie Omanga. Somewhere not quite on the fringes, we have John Mbadi, Peter Munya, Raphael Tuju, Simbarati, the Gideon Moe, Charity Ngilu, the list goes on. Your thoughts on this changing inner circle? What could have informed it? And what does it, does it reflect on the strategy that Azimio has been deploying? Ishmael.
Yeah, you see, Olive, politics, like any journey, has its own, energies. And depending on how strong the winds blow, everything organizes itself and arranges itself in such a manner that it allows the water to flow and the wind to flow. So in this case, I am sure that there's quite a bit of learning after 2022 elections. But it's a surprise to see that a person like Simbarati is moving a little bit outside and not coming back inside. So there's quite a bit that happens that we do not see daily. There's quite a bit that happens, behind the curtain that we do not see daily. Of course, it's expected that Atwoli would move further outside due to the position he takes, depending on who is at State House. So I think that Raila Odinga is also a serious strategist when it comes to politics. I've only had one other person saying he's a political mechanic, and that is the current president. He says, ana ujuzi wa siasa. So I think these are the two people. And I am very sure Raila Odinga is also borrowing leave from what Ruto is doing, so that he organizes a team that can stand with him to actually beat William Ruto's politics. So this kind of organization was bound to happen. Just surprising that there are things which happen behind the curtains, and you find some people like Joho thrown out of the middle, and they have now gone up further outside. Yes.
Right. Did I see his face here somewhere?
He's also there.
Yeah, he's actually moved a little bit up there.
Oh, yes,
He's
yes,
not
yes,
right in the inside.
yes, yes.
You can see now he's on the second row, and not in the bedroom like he was previously.
Is this a case of they have abandoned him, and not necessarily that he's the one who has moved them out of his inner circle, in your thoughts, Doctor?
Well, first of all, I don't know what methodology did the writer use to classify the closeness and the fairness.
Maybe they observed these public rallies and they looked at those who are closer.
Close and those who are a bit far. Well and good. There are myriads of factors that I may, bring out in terms of why would somebody be seen to be close to the center of power as compared to another. First of all, there is what we call political fatigue. Some of the leaders have served quite a number of times and have gone all the way to the second round of the gubernatorial position they have held, and they feel they have nothing more to offer, hence the fatigue that creeps in with the circle of a human being. The other factor may be the coming of new leaders who are a bit stronger, more energetic, younger, vibrant, the Sifonas of this country, of Azimio and so on and so on. They may be boxing out the elders to create their own space and chant their own political destiny, and that could be also a factor. The other one, of course, is the obvious one. Of course, there's always the political chemistry between leaders. There's a time I feel like today I want to work with Ishmael here, or tomorrow I want to work with Olive or Kevin, and it's all about interpersonal relations. Sometimes you may find that there are also, personal differences. Somebody may feel that he was shortchanged in a previous position that he would have captured, and now he's in the cold thanks to that kind of arrangement that took place, and he might be holding that deep in his heart and feel like this is not the route that I want to take, perhaps I should go for another. Or rather, for example, for the case of Passaris, she feels that she has a lot to offer for Nairobi, and when she compares maybe the affiliation, being on the side of Ruto and being on the side of President Raila, you may find that she's somehow tilting or moving towards Ruto's side simply because of what is in the offing, or what Ruto presidency can offer, or administration can offer for that matter in the near future or in the far future. For example, we are talking about 2027. She would want to capture her position for Nairobi back. 2032 the same, and therefore she may find the presidency who holds much of the influence within the political circle may be a better side to associate with, politically speaking.
Or maybe a different political seat entirely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Your thoughts, Kevin? Does it speak to the nature of Raila's politics? Is he the sort of guy who would, keeps friends for long? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I think the only constant thing in life is change. So if you keep on employing a certain strategy and you see that it doesn't actually lead to any fruits, you change the strategy again. So I think for him, this time what he did, after losing the 2022 election, he decided now to change his team again. Of course, there are certain factors that caused to this change. You have to look at it this way. He was actually the candidate of the government then. He lost. So the former president is still supporting him. So he might also be a factor for this change. Because he might tell him, you used to work with these people, they did not deliver, so we need to change the team again. Another factor is people have ambitions, leaders have ambitions. Some they have served the second term. Others are looking to go for a higher office. Others are also strategizing themselves to join the government. So all those factors put in together leads to certain factors such as the change of the inner circle. I am sure what missed in that photo is the photo of the former president. He must be the most inner circle, in the inner circle of Raila Odinga's campaign.
Only,
yes, Israel.
Just if I may have another bite. I think we've actually made this analysis without a comment about Kalonzo Musyoka. I think in a sense it's a central factor. When Raila is looking at who he can work with or who he can support, definitely the name of Kalonzo Musyoka, and I've seen it on media, comes in his mind. He must be sure that he's bringing people either who can deal with Kalonzo Musyoka if he still doesn't want to give him chance, or he's bringing in people who can work as a team with him to endorse Kalonzo Musyoka.
Really? You think he's grooming him?
No.
Well, for succession?
What I said is, it's an analysis that we left out. You cannot leave, either he would bring people together to fight Kalonzo, or he would bring people to actually endorse Kalonzo Musyoka. And in the politics, I don't think there is any surprise.
Doctor, you disagree or agree?
Well, Raila as a person has remained very unpredictable when it comes to his relationship and his plans for Kalonzo Musyoka. Nobody is able to predict what his next move, what he has between his ears in regard to the the succession issue between him and Kalonzo. Kalonzo has supported Raila three times back to back. And when you look at the interview that was conducted by one Bandi, the former minority leader, recently in the Standard, I think you can see that when he was asked about whether Raila is actually grooming Kalonzo Musyoka or anybody else for that matter, he said that Raila is not grooming anybody. People who want to succeed Raila must groom themselves. And that to me is a wake-up call to one Kalonzo Musyoka that he's on his own and he has to chart his own political destination, not waiting for Kalonzo to say, Raila to say Kalonzo Tosha, because that he may end up being disappointed at the end of the day.
So you know that quote, power is taken.
Yeah,
not
power
given.
is grabbed. Power is grabbed. It's never brought on a silver platter. And the Kalonzo, the earlier he learns that, the better. And I think 3 times in a row backing Raila and not getting the same reciprocity. I think it's a high time for him now to wake up and smell the coffee.
All right. Your thoughts, Kevin?
I don't foresee Raila handing over power to anyone. Reason being, the strategy that he's employing right now is a strategy, is actually reinventing himself. Even the strategy of, again, going around telling people that he's collecting signatures, he's trying to have a political vehicle that he can ride on for 2027. So if I was Kalonzo Musyoka, I would smell the coffee, wake up early enough, strategize my team, and actually pick the young tax in his campaign, in the Azimio side, who would propel him. But again, does he stand a chance against the government of the day? I don't foresee.
Interesting metaphor there, given we are sipping on some coffee ourselves. But let me transition us now into the topic of conversation. And this is to do family, not that we have not touched on it kwa periphery. But let's get now into the meat and potatoes of it. Saini za Raila zitatoboa barabara ya muungano wa Azimio la Umoja unaolenga kumng'oa Ruto mamlakani na kubadilisha katiba imejaa miiba. Wataalamu wataja juhudi za Azimio kubandua Ruto enzini kwa saini milioni 10 kama kazi bure. And I'm curious whether my panelists agree with this analysis. Kwa kuwa Rais Ruto tayari ameonyesha kuwa ameteka mabunge yote mawili, hoja ya kumuondoa itazimwa kwa haraka zaidi. And here they're quoting Wakili Peter Wandiga. Just looking at it on the surface before we get into great detail, do you agree with this analysis that wataalamu wataja juhudi za Azimio kubandua Ruto enzini kwa saini milioni 10 kama kazi bure?
You see, Olive, the people, power belongs to the people of Kenya. That this must be very clear, so that we don't deceive State House, we don't deceive the opposition. But people of Kenya have the power, and they donate the power to the leadership. This must be very clear and well understood. However, in the process of impeaching the president or removing him from State House, from power, also has a particular trend. And you can see Article 144, 145. It says clearly then what you do, how you table the motion. You must have enough majority, then take to Parliament, then Senate has to be informed. Then the president now can be impeached. Now, if you go that
is
direction,
Article what of the Constitution?
I think 144.
Sorry?
145.
145.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the point is, are you going to approach Parliament and approach the Senate to actually oust our president? Probably the answer is obvious, that you cannot go through. So what Raila is doing, and this is what, he understands these things. Sometimes, we just dwell so much on hate that we do not analyze an issue more realistically. What Raila is doing, he understands he cannot win through Parliament. Both parliaments, he cannot. So what he's doing is trying to show the world and show Kenyans that, by the way, you are a majority against those who claim to be in power. So he's trying to say we get 10, 11, 12 million signatures. Then having obtained that, probably will now come and bring another theory of, since we are the majority, Now we need to properly recall these members of parliament. And all you need to do, Olive, is to again garner enough signatures to recall your member of parliament. I mean, Raila Odinga actually can do this. You've seen that he can go to a whole county and convince them to do this, and they agree. And he goes to another county, so what is starting? And everybody should be very serious and should be concerned with this kind of move. Because we don't want a country that is disintegrated, whereby you are not able actually to sit down in your office and work. To stop this trend, State House must wake up and come to terms with what people are asking for. And it is so basic. We just want food to go down, and we want, you know, deaths on the highways to go down. We don't want an exclusive club of people at State House. We just want to feel like we belong. So that is the major thing for me. In terms of whether 10 million signatures will actually remove Ruto from State House, it's obvious they will not. But what is the meaning and impact of those signatures is what my concern is. And we should stop it and nip it at this stage by bringing the prices down, let the government cushion people on fuel. We cannot buy fuel at 200. It might even go, it might shoot to 300 shillings. Let the government return those subsidies. They said that the subsidies were being, you know, taken by former president's clique and all that. No. Let them bring back the subsidies. Let Kenyans feel like they are relieved a little bit, and then they will forget about these issues of signatures. It has a meaning when Raila starts things like this. Yes.
All right. We'll get into the political meaning of it. But first, Dr. Raila Odinga has anchored this because there was a question of that was even raised by the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua in response that this is unconstitutional.
Yes.
And the question that rose for me was that, is this extra legal, not illegal, extra legal,
constitutional,
extra constitutional?
Exactly.
So, but he said it is anchored in Article 1 of the Constitution, and then I'm curious whether you agree with him. Which state sovereignty of the people, all sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya, and shall be exercised in accordance with this Constitution. The people may exercise their sovereign power either directly or through their democratically elected representatives. And in his view, this would be an exercise of direct sovereign power. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, Olive, let me remind the viewers that Article 1, which delegates, which talks about the people may exercise under Sub-Article 2. The people may exercise their sovereign power either directly or through their democratically represented representatives. Well, when we talk about direct, when they exercise their voice directly, it is only through one way, which is actually what we call the ballot, or universal suffrage for that matter. And that's by electing their leaders, or men and women who would represent or champion their agenda in both, you know, the parliament, legislation processes, MCA level, and so on, even at gubernatorial, the presidential level. But what worries me is the route that Raila and the company have actually opted to pick, collecting signatures. I've read the Constitution. I've even turned it upside down to see whether I'm doubting my own eyes, to see where the threshold of 10 million is actually captioned in the whole Constitution. I've also looked at it and looked at how or where it is provided in terms of, you know, recalling a sitting president. And there is nowhere that, you know, clause is actually provided in the Constitution. Actually, what is close to that is just Article 256 and 257, which talks about the parliamentary and the popular initiatives, which are avenues for actually amending the Constitution. But there is nowhere other than Article 104 of the Constitution, which talks about on how to recall a sitting member of parliament, as read together with Article 97 and 98 of the Constitution. So what baffles me is, again, when they collect these signatures, of course they have to be verified by the IEBC and so on and so on. An IEBC, which we are talking about, which is non-existent as we are talking today, it is not there, other than just the secretariat, which is actually maintaining the normal daily administrative work of the organization. But we do not have a substantive IEBC to verify those signatures. And again, I would ask myself, after collecting these signatures, what next? And I'm seeing a misty sort of pathway that the opposition has actually undertaken on this matter. So going forward, I think we do agree that Raila and the company, of course, are agitating for some fundamental issues which are really biting Kenyans. Cost of food, you know, cost of living, and so on, which are very fundamental issues. But again, is this the right way to champion those agenda? No, I'll tell you. There was an opportunity to engage in a discourse, 7-member committee chosen by both sides to agree or to iron out on these issues, including cost of living. There was a finance bill that they had the opportunity to marshal their troops, including those who are feeling it's not worth at the Kenya Kwanza side to woo them to support shooting down the finance bill. But what we are told is they chickened out. Some of them feigned sicknesses, others were bribed with the soup. And at the end of the day, at the end of the day, the finance bill sailed through. Of course, it's a matter in the
Public
corridors
domain.
of in the corridors of justice, and I do not want to delve much on it.
All right.
Yeah.
Are we missing the point, Kevin? By now, you know, examining Article 1, Article, you know, and several articles have been referenced, which I will look at and what they provide. But are we missing the point? Is this less about? Is this, as Ishmael is arguing, this is really not about, you know, parallel IBCs, because both people have said, you know, Raila has said if they constitute their IBC without us, we will also constitute our IBC. But is this now a political referendum? Is this an attempt by Raila Odinga to demonstrate one, that the elections were stolen, right? Because maybe he'd be like, you know, if I have 10 million signatures, it means I have this larger, this bigger support base. Is it a question of to demonstrate to the sitting president that the people are with me, and therefore whatever the people's representatives voiced in parliament did not reflect the will of the people? What is it in your view?
Now, talking about this, it reminds me of a scholar called Dennis Diderot.
Sorry, Dennis who?
Diderot.
Diderot.
Yes. Diderot, in his study, he identified that an illustration whereby when you buy a new shirt or a new dress, Olive, you end up buying a new shoe, similarly, to accompany the dressing. So to cure this, he said that the laws, there comes the sole barrier to the desires of men. So in short, in a nutshell, what he meant is we have to come up with the laws to cure the desires of men. So what we're actually experiencing right now is Raila Odinga knows the law. And reading out Article 1 of the Constitution on the sovereignty of the people and the sovereignty of the Constitution, and Article 129 as well, Article 129 states that the executive authority, the principles of executive authority is vested on the people of Kenya. And the people of Kenya return this now by electing the president. And Article 130 again goes to indicate the members of the executive authority. And the members of the executive authority we have is the president, the deputy president, and the members of cabinet. So again, you going round and you proceeding now down to the Constitution of Kenya. It is inscribed very well under Article 136 how a candidate is elected as president. For you to have reached 50% plus one, again you are attaining 25% in the 50 or in more than half of the counties. That's how you end up being declared the president of Kenya. So August last year, 2022, we went to a general election on the second Tuesday of the 5th year of August. We went to a general election. We elected from MCA going up, the bottom up. From MCA, we elected MP, we elected governors, we elected senators, and even the president. Azimio side had the opportunity to present their challenge, which is of course enshrined in the Constitution, the Supreme Court. And what the Supreme Court said, the verdict of the Supreme Court, they actually agreed with the elections. So he exhausted all legal means applicable. Martha Karua went ahead to, again, the East African Court of Justice, the same thing that applied. So him going round and round again, he's actually not depicting that he has the masses. What he's trying to do is trying to reinvent himself again so that to keep his supporters marching. That's what he has been doing. Even from the previous regime, a little bit Ishmael, he started with resist milk, resist cooking oil, resist. He was called on the table for the handshake. So we all know his political gimmicks, what he's doing. He's trying to match his supporters to show that he has people, so that expecting that he's going to be called for him to stop that. And again, what he's doing, he's curtailing our economy in a bid for him to be called on the table. So that he's asked, what do you want?
All right. He did say, although in his speech at Kamkuji before
yes,
at the march to Central Park, that don't know if it was. No, he said we will walk, but they were in vehicles.
Yes.
But he said wakati wa kuongea imeisha, essentially.
Yes.
But Ishmael, there's something.
I was just saying. I think the laws we have in the country are quite many, and if you hear what my colleague is saying, is we should make laws to control the desires of men, or something sort like that.
Yes, yes.
Sort of that. The biggest gap in this country is we never create the laws that block people's egos, especially those in leadership. If you actually analyze why we are in big problems, Olive, it's really not about big issues. It will be small things like we want the wife of the prime cabinet secretary to be given a posh office. A small thing maybe for the child of the president or deputy or these big leaders. This is the real issue. And when you look at what Raila Odinga is fighting about and what actually William Ruto is fighting about, something like, I can't shake his hand. I cannot shake his hand. It's a smaller part. It's the ego aspect. This has never been legislated, and people come out here and do all manner of things. Now, when you are a head of state and you decide, I want to reward my friends, and I want to expand the cabinet, and I want to have 51 CS, the rules are clear, you cannot. Then it has to take us to go to court, spend a lot of money. Again, the court say, no, you can't pick another 27. Then you come back again, you say, we have a new law. You hike the petrol. And then actually the court has already said, no, you cannot implement that rule. So you already spent so much money within a week or two just for the court to say you can't do this. So I think legislating ego, I don't know how we can go about it, whereby you don't use your office to really feel big and you want to stamp authority on the public, on people. So people go suffering actually for entire season just because you are inside feeling you really need to gratify your inside feeling. This is not legislated, and this is where the problem is. It would take you had I don't want to call him wrong, Yego is Bishop Yego of the AIC. He came out the other day. I mean, he's the one who prayed for the president when he won anyway. But he came up and said, to be honest, you made a lot of promises, but it's not possible to fulfill them. Just come out and say...
No, it was not Yego. It was...
what's this? The bishop...
Where is it? Why is it evading me? It'll come to me. It'll come to me. Yeah,
okay,
I know you're...
Bishop.
No,
yes, that bishop.
Ole Sapit.
It was on media.
So Ole Sapit.
Ole Sapit. Yes. Thank you. Ole Sapit came to the media and he said, it doesn't take so much, Olive. And by the way, William Ruto has that talent and he has that gift. If he simply wants to come and say, hey, gentlemen, and never me, I promised, but I'm sorry. And everybody will actually go with him and side with him. But to try to squeeze and push Kenyans to limits just because you feel that that inner position of yours should remain as it is both selfish and it's actually dangerous to the nation.
Let me chip on that.
Okay. Doctor.
I don't think President Ruto in his administration has to appease everybody and make him happy, politically speaking. I'm saying this one because he himself has always said that we do not have to agree on everything that flies in front of us. And he's on record, actually, that he has been agitating for a vibrant office of the opposition leader, which is, to him, has to be structured, to put the government in check, so to pick his own words. And I think he's also, as of now, President Ruto is getting, I think, better, I mean, more than he bargained for when it comes to the role of the opposition. Because an opposition that keeps you awake all day long, all night long, I think is the opposition that you do not want to have, keeping, putting checks and balances on your government each and every day. Of course, he would want to be seen to be fighting graft within his administration, but agitating for that role to be established through a parliamentary, change of the constitution to create those offices. To me, I think if I were to advise him, I would tell him to drop that idea and still stick to the presidential system that we are having today, which provides for leader of minority. Actually, this is Wandai who is actually holding that position, which was previously held by one Bandi. And I can tell you that the role that Raila and the company are playing right now is exactly what an official opposition leadership would offer, ensuring that it brings out those issues of corruption, puts in the government where it belongs in terms of checks and the balances when it, goes overboard. And to me, I think that to me would be enough for today, because an official opposition office which is fully structured under the constitution, to me, would require a lot of funding, a lot of chase cars, a lot of other officers to accompany that office and person, and that's not good for the wage bill of the country.
All right, but there is the ego that
Yes.
Ishmael made reference to.
Absolutely.
Kevin?
Answering to what Ishmael and my colleague here said, is that you look at the promises that Kenya Kwanza made for it to ascend to power. We had 5 sectors that formed the core pillars of the plan, and we had one as agriculture. Number 2, we had the MSME economy. Number 3, we had the housing and settlement. Number 4, we had what we call the digital superhighway and creative economy. And number 5 is healthcare. Looking at all these sectors require resources for you to activate these sectors, actually for you to implement the sectors. Again, under the patriotism, irrespective of the government in place, as a Kenyan, you need to support your country, because at the end of the day, we have a country to call home. We have a country whereby you'll come back home, irrespective of whether who is in power and who is not in power. So it's upon each and every Kenyan, whether you're in opposition or in government, to have that symbol of patriotism, so that you support the government of the day to achieve its mandate. If all these sectors, the 5 sectors, are actually implemented, fully implemented, we are going to have change in our country. What we have done in our current wage bill, you find that we have reduced the amount of borrowing that we used to have. Because you find we used to borrow for recurrent expenditure. You borrow to pay salaries. So what you have done, if the government used to borrow 1 trillion, now we have reduced the 1 trillion to 700 billion. So that now the 300 billion is now catered in another aspect. But at the end of the day, 5-10 years down the line, this country will be left to the younger generation, who are going to spearhead again the nation forward. If we keep on borrowing and increase our public debt, we will no longer have a country to call home.
Okay.
Yes.
I want to get into whether this is a space, this extra legal space is where Raila thrives. And I ask that because there was the opportunity to make the case in the Supreme Court. You know, was it botched because the Chief Justice called it Hewamoto? You know, with the finance bill, there was the opportunity to marshal and convert MPs from the ruling party. You know, was not executed as well. There was not. You know, I was reading that report I mentioned from last week. Yeah. And MPs were saying, opposition MPs were saying they're not whipped. Unlike Kenya Kwanza, where apparently Osoro went to the restaurant, despite the soup, akasema ifungwe. Members, wende wa vote. What nini people cannot be feeling their stomachs well. It's a vote on the floor of the house. You know, and even with the election, there was that book that was written by Saitabao. You know, talking, you know, what went wrong? How did Raila lose the election? And there was a special report that was filed by Kennedy Mureithi. And we had members of Azimio saying they didn't have agents. They need, so, you know, it seems with it, Raila doesn't appear, you know, but I'm not an expert to thrive in that structured space that you were making reference to, Daktari, that it seems he thrives in that. A little bit of chaos, you know, but perhaps it's a good thing. It's a good because thing. It forces us to now, you know, expand our thinking, you know, like now we are debating Article 1 and this exercise of direct power. I know we need to take a break. So we'll take a break. We'll come back, we'll look at the legislation. Then I will give my panelists an opportunity to respond to that particular question.
Okay.
Nunua KPLC tokens, bila charges, only on Airtel Money. Dial *334#. Select Lipa na Airtel Pay Bill, then select KPLC.
Do not hold back in any situation. Eno gets to work on the 6 symptoms of heartburn fast.
You do know you said all of that out loud, right?
If symptoms persist, seek medical advice.
In my shirt, a toss of lavender and a world of freshness.
Wash your clothes with Toss Lavender to leave your clothes with a lasting, irresistible freshness.
Are you a Kenyan youth ready to unlock your true potential? Join us on the 14th and 15th of July 2023 at the University of Nairobi for the Skill Up Africa 2023 as we mark World Youth Skills Day and get the chance to gain insight on the skills that will shape your future and unlock your potential. Register now for free entry at kenyabuzz.com or call 0724 661 440 to explore 2 days of transformative experiences, empowering dialogues, and invaluable networking opportunities. Skill Up Africa 2023, unlocking the potential of Kenyan youth through skills development.
I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate the Nation Media Group and all the partners that will make providing sanitary towels to our girls, especially in the informal settlements and mission-based schools, free sanitary towels. So please join in and support this cause, because we know much as the government is providing a budget to provide sanitary towels, it is never enough. Let's end period poverty, let's give dignity to our girls, and let's make our girls go out there and not be ashamed of being on periods, but being bold enough to say, I'm on my period and I have my sanitary towels. This will also help curb and end teenage pregnancies, because a lot of girls out there are being influenced to engage in sexual activity for sanitary towels. So let's team up together as a country, as citizens, to ensure we end period poverty.
Good morning. If you're just joining us, you are watching AM Live. My name is Olive Barrows. This morning, we are asking this drive to collect 10 million signatures by the end of this week. To what end is the question. I had posed the same question on Twitter. These are some of your views. Enoch Mandila said Ruto does not care about the suffering Kenyans. He must be stopped. Let him resign. And then Henry Mirera says, hot air, let's meet in 2027 in the ballot. Same sentiments as expressed by the Deputy President. George Ndege says, let me see, Olive, stop daydreaming, spend your time discussing something relevant, but on signature issue, it is hot air. And then we have the Comrades Prof. And he says, quick question, who is going to verify the 10 million signatures after falling out of the bipartisan talks that we were supposed to address the IEBC issue? George Ongaga wanted to do the panelists. I think he hadn't seen the thread. Itajulikana is what Hiram says. Odhiambo George says, hawa watu wametudanganya na census for long, utasikia 80 cukes ni wengi na hawazai wanaume wao wameolewa na tei wameolewa na tei yani tembo, but they claim do wengi kwani. Okay, I will just leave that one there. Austin Oroe says that's fine, Olive, the power is ours. Augustine, or again, he says, I think what I see in our country when colonial police are going against the rule of law and even the government praises them, one day we'll have to divide Kenya. Edward Mukunya says, without reference to the law, and this is in all caps, without reference to the law, these are your hard questions. Political referendum based on which article of the Constitution? Return power to the people. When was it stolen? By who? In violation of which article of the Constitution? So this is Edward Mukunya. Let me see. Then this is Odhiambo George, who says the Azimio are channeling a hit to your signatures. They will be told that they are fake. This is Geoffrey Murunga, who says true. The fight is between serial loser conman Raila Odinga family and President William Samoei Ruto, period. Okay, so I will find the rest of your replies as we continue the conversation. But speaking of which article, you guys were making reference to some articles. We looked at Article 1. Kevin, you made reference to Article 129. Yeah. Executive authority derives from the people of Kenya and shall be exercised in accordance with this Constitution. Executive authority shall be exercised in a manner compatible with the principle of service to the people of Kenya and for their well-being and benefit. Can I just repeat that? I love this one. Executive authority shall be exercised in a manner compatible with the principle of service to the people of Kenya and for their well-being and benefit. Then we spoke about what was the impeachment? Removal of president by impeachment. Yeah. This is Article 145. A member of the National Assembly, supported by at least a third of all the members, may move a motion for the impeachment of the president. A, on the ground of a gross violation of a provision of this Constitution or of any other law. B, where there are serious reasons for believing that the president has committed a crime under national or international law. C, for gross misconduct. 2, if a motion under Clause 1 is supported by at least 2/3 of all the members of the National Assembly, the Speaker shall inform the Speaker of the Senate of that resolution within 2 days. The President shall continue to perform the functions of the office pending the outcome of proceedings required by this article. Within 7 days after receiving notice of a resolution from the Speaker of the National Assembly, the Speaker, it goes on. So essentially here, I have not seen anything on signatures.
Yeah.
Okay. Not. All right, so I will leave that there, but there was the one on recalling. MPs' right of recall.
Yeah, 104.
Article 104. The electorate under Articles 97 and 98 have the right to recall the Member of Parliament representing their constituency before the end of the term of the relevant House of Parliament. Parliament shall enact legislation to provide for the grounds on which a member may be recalled and the procedure to be followed. But, you know, by extension, if this can apply to MPs, you know, there's always that reason of by extension. If this applies to this elective office, then wouldn't it apply to this elective office? Like in the question of degrees. Remember with the governors? That if what was it, the minimum requirement, if MCAs are not required to have a degree, then why must the governor have a degree? Remember that extrapolated reasoning. Could that be applied where this article is concerned? Ishmael.
Let's put it this way. Again, we said earlier, power belongs to the people. And when we donate power to the leadership, they should practice it, they should exercise it in a manner that it benefits the people of Kenya. And before we went on break, we wanted to comment about this. We wanted to say, you know, even when we come here, I come here to speak as a citizen, I have a small part to play to make Kenya better. And it is always good to be both honest, realistic, and balanced in the sense that it is not good that we build a country where always there is friction and rivalry, where even it doesn't exist. And I go back to what I said earlier, that this friction is happening just because people are not following the law the way it is. They are actually serving their selfish ego. So in my humble view, if a person in leadership is actually not exercising power in such a manner that it benefits the hustlers, you see what I'm saying? Then it would be better to come down and explain to the people that, okay, this promise is possible, but this one is not possible. It's not a question of apologizing to anyone. It's a question of telling the people that this can be done, but this cannot be done, at least not now, according to Ole Sapit. So referring to these articles of the Constitution, if I may also contribute on that. The Constitution is there so that it can jelly and make it easy for leaders to navigate. There are people who think that Article 104 cannot be implemented, probably because of ABC, like you asked. If it's not applicable to the president, why should it be applicable to a member of parliament? The same thing with the degree requirement and all that. All the articles of the Constitution, in the end, actually should help those in leadership to jelly and to navigate, not for people to be fighting. So as it is, if Raila is talking about, I can't make it through parliament, I cannot make it through the Senate, I'm going to make it through the people, that is an issue of concern to me. Instead of dismissing it and saying, hey, he will go nowhere with the signatures, he is going to use our resources. Even if it's not public resources, he's going to use our resources. And when you see people being battered in the street because they are trying to argue their point that the Constitution is being breached, it is not just idle. Because why would you have a national police service that is independent from executive actually clobbering and battering people in the street? Why would? If people want to go and sit at Kamukunji and then walk to the president's office, what's the big deal? I mean, you cannot stop people from carrying a djembe in the morning to go and till their land. Neither can you actually stop them if they want to walk on the tarmac from Kamukunji to the president's office, at least without violence. And that's where now I go with Kalonzo, where he says you can exercise your right without actually being violent. But this question of trying to create a society, Olive, where we have to be in friction, I have to say no, if it's Mutie arguing, I'm not going to listen, even when he has a point, is actually where Kenya is still down on the bottom. We should now encourage that Raila Odinga has a role in the country as a politician, the same way Kalonzo has, the same way President William Ruto must be given time to deliver on his mandate. But going back to, egos and arguing, oh, it's me, Mimi Kusema, this is hurting our country.
let me
this is really hurting our country. Yeah.
Let me delve on that, Oliver. On the same breath, when you look at Article 104, as read together with Article 97 and 98, which provides for avenues for recalling members of parliament for non-performance or whatever reason. First of all, is that implementation itself, or recalling a sitting member of parliament in Kenya, is the hardest thing you can ever imagine. Actually, it's harder than cracking a coconut shell using your teeth. It's almost impossible. But again, you asked about why does this not apply also upwards? Of course, we have case studies of countries that have really tried to, encapsulate, a recall clause at the presidential level. And I'm talking about countries such as Bolivia, Colombia, Venezuela, and the latest was Mexico, which actually has been, yearning for that insertion of a recall clause at the presidential level, although it has been receiving some weird ones and some sort of bottlenecks. But in Kenya, that seemed to be missing. A recall clause at the presidential level, it's missing. And the only avenue that brings it closer is Article 145, which actually talks about avenues under which can be pursued to remove a sitting president from office. And we have seen that being highlighted under Article 145 very clearly. But this issue of signatures, to me, I think it is quite a far-fetched one, if I am allowed to use those words. But again, when you look at the a recall clause, to me, it's discriminatory in nature. Because why would we have a governor who is supposed to have a degree, and the counterpart, a senator, who is supposed to have oversight role over the governor, is not supposed to have a degree? Then it beats all the sorts of logic. Then, even our president, I don't think our president is supposed to have a degree. He's supposed to have a degree. But an MCA is a post-secondary. certificate. MP is a post-secondary certificate, no degree. So this kind of discrimination, I mean, based on academic achievements under Article 27, to me is a bit discriminatory, and it should be relooked so that we have a sort of level ground where all players are given, equal, stand or position, not one having an edge over the other. Others had shortcuts. They had their time. They never invested in education to become better leaders. Although they say it's not a necessity for all leaders. Education doesn't make all leaders good. Neither does good leaders all have to be educated on the rivers. So to me, I think going forward, Olive, I think we need to also look at the laws. Every 10 years of implementation of a constitution in any given country offers an opportunity for review of that constitution and see what has worked for us, what has not worked for us, what needs some review, and what needs some tweaking to make it a better instrument to govern the country moving forward.
All right. Kevin, our political leaders make many statements, and then they tell us, mimi sio mwenda wazimu, kusema hivi. So, Raila is not a madman. Yes. So can you then so easily dismiss this collection of signatures?
Yes, because I recall some few months to elections, he said that he would accept results. Actually, it was in an interview. He said that he assures every Kenyan that whatever the results.
I'm sure there was the attached clause that assuming they were free and fair.
Yes. Now, the big question is, how do you quantify the degree of fairness? And actually free and fairness? Because according to him, he had the support of the ruling government. He had the sitting president supporting him. So actually he had the system, as he put it clearly. But again, I think things went south for him, that he couldn't believe that how come, and he thought maybe this was his last chance of him being elected as president. How come he has lost with all the support he had? So that's why he thought maybe the elections were stolen. Again, he went to the Supreme Court and he lost. So all this, I see it as what we call it in a layman's language, cinemare of Ipindire, what we term it here at City Center. Because what he's trying to do is trying to actually show his supporters that he's working. Because at the end of the day, I think he has ambitions. I foresee him actually vying again in 2027. Now he's trying to actually restart a vehicle that he's going to use to run for 2027. Because I'm certain he knows the signatures will go nowhere. He's sure. But now the big question for me would be, what would be his exit strategy in that signature drive?
All right.
Yes.
There was a comment that I had seen that I could not find. Somebody had said, they'll collect the 10 signatures. Then I don't know which IBC they would take them to. Yes. Then you'd find 7 million have been can't be verified. Yeah. I don't know why I can't find that comment. But it was there. I'm not making it up.
I think on that one, what we also need to point out is opposition in Kenya has, with the time, also become not only weak but very disorganized. Yeah. When you look at 2022, when the former head of state supported the lineup of Raila Odinga, if they were actually organized, they would have taken this seat. Yeah. They were completely disorganized. You kept wondering, why is Raila Odinga not even campaigning? So what I'm saying is the opposition should also see that anyway, part of this is our mess. They shouldn't blame everybody and then now lord it over the citizens, give us signatures so that we prove something. The opposition has been... You can now see what Mbadi is now saying about Wandai. You see now, again, that is a sign of disorganization. So unless that is taken care of, and then of course not changing positions at the last minute to elections, and Ruto was enjoying seeing how they are confused, how they are appointing and Ruto the chairman, who was probably not very well known in the previous leadership, then just funny changes at the last minute. So I think that the opposition has become very weak, and now you can see people like Osoro are now taking advantage. They know very well that how watu iko njaa, so if I just invite him to the restaurant, I will. And I think this is the major problem, which on the inverse, you can see that it is in the government where the money is, and that is a big problem in this country because people are not making money out here. Yeah. If you want to make money, you go to the government. You see, that is wrong. In a balanced democratic economy, we should have money in the hands of the private sector, so that You just work a little bit and you make 200 shillings. You come here, you work a little bit, you have 2,000. And we don't then have to depend on the leadership or on State House. But as it is now, I think the chief, the majority chief whip knows that hapa iko njaa. And that is a big and major problem, by the way, for the nation. These people in opposition should have money. And if they don't have, they should at least sacrifice 5 years of being patient and long suffering until they make money. But you don't just take your tummy to the chief whip, give me money so that I vote for you or I don't vote. I think that is where the opposition, my point, has been letting Kenyans down.
You know, I can't remember it was
they are too hungry. I mean,
out of government, kuna baridu unapigwa na upepo.
Let me say something in regard to the same, and I want to also disabuse the notion that being in government is a way of making money. First of all, this is a calling. This is a noble calling.
Really?
It is only. In all fairness, it should be what I was taught at Daystar University, servant leadership. You know, you are thrusting yourself at leadership level to serve people and to impact, you know, bring that social change and ensure that people are influenced by your own good. But this notion that you have to get into parliament, you know, or in government to make money, sometimes you ask yourself, how much is enough? And when you look at most of those people who are serving in most of the positions, when you look at their pockets, they are quite deep. They have made money, they have stabilized their families. Of course, that's debatable. But at the end of the day, you ask yourself, is it worth, you know, pushing the pedal so much at the expense of the common mwananchi in terms of making that extra coin just by being in government? First of all, I want to say that as much as the politics, the opposition is being said to be in the cold, is not making money by the likes of Ishmael.
No, also, because, you know, my understanding is this. Unajua sasa imesemekana walikunywa soup.
Yes.
Now the electorate will be like, wapi yetu?
Wapi soup yetu? I think during the times of the handshake, when Raila was on the same political bed with the President Uhuru, and he was, by that time, still an opposition leader. But when he crossed over and they shared the same political bed, these issues of dissatisfaction, disgruntlement, disenfranchisement of the government was not there. We could not hear him raising those issues, those scards and those bombs in terms of the non-performance of the government of the day. But now, because, as Ishmael is saying, is out there in the cold, kuna njaa, that's why we are seeing all these kind of, you know, reactions and extreme moves, because that's an extreme move when I talk about collection of 10 million signatures to host a sitting presidency, which is an extra constitutional and extra legal. And I would want to say that this is a desperation of the highest order. And if I were the person of Raila, I would start, you know, hanging my gloves, my boots, and started grooming a predecessor who is a little bit more energetic and would push my agenda to the next level. But at this age of 78, if I'm not wrong, 79, I think he has given it all, and it's the high time that he exits honorably from the political scene and maintain that statesmanship and ensure that the person who has been handed the mantle, you know, shares the same philosophy, is charismatic enough to push the agenda while he's at the periphery.
All right. But Kevin, would it be dangerous for the Kenya Kwanza administration to discount Raila Odinga? Because I was looking at some of the headlines, was it yesterday's Daily Nation, and you know how they phrased how the deputy president received the collection of signatures. They said, I don't know whether they used the word dismissed or laughed off, but you know, I listened to the deputy president, and he said, you know, this is an attempt to redo the election, the Kenyans, you know, signatures. You win elections at the ballot, you know, not with signatures. Here it is. Azimio's 10 million signature drive is just a waste of time. You know, would it be dangerous for the government to take that position? Because I was looking at some of the videos that were shared, you know, return to sender. Some guy, you know, that's tear gas and he kicks it in Narudi. And then there was this clip of police wakipiga teke. You know, the protesters were after them and all of that. You know, What kind? Which of who can marshal that kind?
Of influence.
You know, who can marshal that kind of? We've seen at least 3 university students lose their lives to this cause. So it seems he still has that ability, that base. So would it be dangerous, despite us saying, oh, I'm a Zeka, you know, he's lost someone, to say it is a waste of time? Makosa?
Yeah, it's two-way because one, these are actually the politicos, they are friends, irrespective of whether in opposition or in government, because at the end of the day, politics is about interest. And once you achieve your own interests, you can easily call your brother here in the middle of the night to talk and renegotiate. So them responding to Raila Amolo Odinga is because they know his tactics, they have worked with him prior. Actually, some of them, like the president was under his party at some point in the year 2007. So he knows all the tactics that Raila Amolo Odinga has. And vice versa, Raila knows the tactics of this other side. So them, that pull and push is because they know each other very well. Again, our elections is because people compete to control resources. And the moment I accept that I have lost to Mutia here, or Mutia has lost to me, I think we'll have this issue of chaos being an end, coming to an end. Because at the end of the day, election is 5 years. So you can just wait for Mutia to finish his term, then you again go to the people, come up with your own views again, then whether you're elected or not, life moves on. So at the end of the day, the best opposition practice that I've seen actually is in parliament. Marshal your team in parliament, come up with the raft proposals, counter proposals that maybe this other side has. Whichever team that wins, actually I believe we have some of the best brains in opposition. But they don't know how to air their views because they fear their party leader. If you air a counter proposal, you'll be seemed as if you want actually to take over his seat. So as my colleague here said, the best ideology or the best strategy for Raila Amolo Odinga is to groom someone younger than him who can actually who can actually steer his agenda forward, because he won't be here in 2032. Maybe, I don't know. Based on his age, he would have been incapacitated by that time. But again, he has very good proposals. So he needs to mentor the younger people to spearhead his agenda forward.
If Joe Biden bado wako is governing, who is Raila Odinga?
What I want to say, Olive, whatever happens, the buck stops with the president. In terms of people dying in chaos, the buck stops with the head of state. And it is important for the head of state, by all means, to ensure that actually he cools down this kind of tempers that we see, not even in the opposition, but in the people. You know, it's a very bad example, by the way, Mutia, I know you're very worried about that remark, but I know what I'm talking about. It is very bad to see police officer being chased by a public. Are you aware about this? And it's a synergy kind of thing. It re-energizes the youth to imagine again that now, tomorrow again, they will do what? They will chase these police officers. So it is upon the head of state to actually cool down Raila Odinga and, you know, practically tell him, we all know now we are not in election mood. We all know William Ruto cannot leave State House. I mean, he's the head of state, constitutionally so and lawfully. But it is upon the head of state now to find out how to work with Raila Odinga so that this kind of skirmishes we are seeing on the street actually completely stop. And if you say, okay, they were talking, then they couldn't talk because of whatever it was, it is our country. And who is our CEO? It is the head of state, William Ruto. So it is upon him to cool down Raila Odinga and bring the opposition and discuss with them. Whatever he does, it is his problem. But we cannot come here to try to create any further friction. If we go that direction where leaders are being jeered and police are being chased in the streets, obviously we are going the Sudan way. Only if you cannot reach Sudan today and it was a peaceful country all the time. So it's important that everybody understands how serious and how concerning these issues are, especially the issue of opposition and the executive, so that they both can come together and say, enough is enough, let us move the economy forward. I really honestly want my children to go to school. I want to earn some fees today. And I don't anticipate where I have to go running in the streets. But if food is going to be what it is, and fuel is going to be what it is, honestly, you cannot blame the citizens. I mean, for agitating for lowering of prices of basic commodities.
Let me delve on the
I can't remember who it was. I don't think it was Mwangi Wairia at the press conference after the march. Who I don't know if who said watu wanunue firimbi, mama mbogo akikuja kuitisha pesa una nini firimbi wanakuibia, watu wa power akikuja unapiga firimbi wamekuibia. You know what happens in a situation where daktari,
chaotic.
Kenyans feel powerless.
Helpless.
Yeah.
I think that's a recipe for anarchy, and where instruments or organs, especially security apparatus, when they feel that they are under pressure or they are threatened in terms of their existence, I think that first of all is a very worrying trend, and I do agree with Ishmael that if citizens feel that they can overpower the police, next time they will feel that they can also overpower the military. And these narratives of we are going to march 1 million people to State House to topple the government of the day, that's a coup itself. And to me, it has no room in a progressive democracy where we, always agitate for application of the rule of law and due process and so on and so on. Because we have, as a country, adhered to that, and we have experimented with our state organs, especially the judicial system, that you can lose an election and go for a petition and get a verdict, and that has been done not once, not twice. And when the verdict of those organs is out there, it has to be appreciated and acknowledged and actually respected for that matter. But where we have a situation where somebody, when he feels that the vote have not gone his way, the only way is to mobilize people to storm these institutions, especially State House for that matter. To me, is an extreme move that I would be very cautious, to advise the leader of opposition not to think about it that way, because this country will remain at the end of the day after the exit of some of these leaders. And we young people would want to see a country which is gelled together, which is solid for ourselves and also for the future generations. But moving forward, I think we have seen a situation where, as Ishmael has said, that the buck stops with the president in terms of the national social cohesion of the country. I do want to agree with him, but the president has done everything that he could for now, because going by what he has done, he contested for a political seat. He won, right? According to the papers and according to the records. He was confirmed. He never confirmed himself as, but he was confirmed by the IEBC, that is the legitimate leader. Again, that was challenged by the court, by the opposition, and he went to the court and he accepted. The courts gave their verdict that is the bona fide leader of that position. Now, 6 months or 7 months without even settling down, he was actually receiving fire from all corners, all quarters. He had no time to set down his plans, experiment new ideas, put down his house in order, so that he can show results for the country. And I mind you listen to this, Olive. This should be on record, actually. In June, the presidency had set a target for KRA to collect 2 billion Kenya shillings. But KRA, through the measures that the president has put, yielded 57 billion Kenya shillings. That was 55 billion more than what they had been set or they had been given as a target. And they were able to pay all the salaries without borrowing from externally. And these are some of the measures that I'm saying, if the president would be given enough time to experiment some of these new ideas, to me, it would be the right direction, because it would be too early to judge his track record and to start cascading his administration when he's already putting his house in order. All right. That's my take, actually.
All right. So I'll let Kevin have the last word in a minute or less, because I'm on borrowed time now. But these calls for Raila's arrest because of these statements that have been referenced by Daktari and Ishmael of marching to State House and all of that, threats to topple the government, or for him to be held accountable for the loss of lives and damage to property during these protests. What do you make of them?
Now, one, I wouldn't advocate for handshake. because I see Ishmael is advocating for handshake. Reason being,
I think he's calling for sobriety on either side of the political divide.
In a layman term, it's called handshake. You want, because the moment you accept handshake, you have lost the essence of election. Because you'll be losing election, then you seek for, then the opposition, the person who lost seeks you, then you go, we actually would lose meaning for election. So what I would advocate is for the opposition to give the current government time, because I know the agenda it has. It means well for the people. Only what it lacks is time for it to implement. This is the first budget the government has done. So we anticipate that in the next few months, the price of food commodity will come down. Actually, the price of cooking gas, as we speak, has lowered a little bit. The price of cooking oil will come down. The price of sugar, actually everything will come down. What we lack is time. So in a month or two, you're going to experience change, and all this mandamano will end, because people are going to on the streets because they're hungry. That's why you experience instances of people being robbed during this mandamano. And you know, to reiterate that, the police have to act again, because they have to protect Mutie, they have to protect Mutiso, they have to protect Kiarie from being robbed from these boons. Okay.
All right.
So let's give the government time for it to implement its agenda. I know it means well, so that when you meet here in 3 months again, we'll be talking about a different ballgame altogether.
All right. So I want to thank you guys for being here. Unfortunately, I have to wrap it up. Ishmael, I saw you are like, but Kevin Kiarie, lawyer and lobbyist, Ishmael Nyaribo, advocate and political analyst, Dr. Brian Mutie, advocate and governance specialist. Thank you for being here. Unfortunately, James was not able to join us this morning, but I imagine he will be on another occasion. Have yourself a good morning. Coming up, your world.